welcome to another episode of Alphawaves.
Welcome. We in the building.
Yes, we are.
Your hosts, Darren and Kam.
Darren and Kam, back at it again. another week. Well, I know where I'm going with
I was waiting to hear where that punchline was coming in, but
I was just hoping you'd interrupt me.
I was waiting to see where you was taking it,
It went nowhere, but
Hope you look good out there.
yes.
And we wanted to talk on the topic of burnout this week.
Yeah, burnout.
Are you feeling burnt out?
Not anymore.
Good. Good. Yeah, nah.
But I had been.
I feel like at some stage in our life, everybody's either been through it or will go through it. And everybody deals with it differently, I believe.
I think so too. And I think, sadly, where we are anyway, I think burnout is inevitable in most cases. I think once you get older, I feel like the older I get, or the more into my career, my path, whatever I get, the more people I'm around, the more I just see it everywhere. Like everyone is experiencing burnout.
You think it comes with age?
I don't think it has to come with age. I think people who are younger can experience burnout too.
But it's predominant in the older folks.
Yeah, but I have to say, like, as I've gotten older, like, I can't remember speaking to people about burnout when I was younger or experiencing that myself.
It's probably a case of you not even knowing what it is.
Yeah,
when you're
possibly. But I don't remember feeling the way that I've been feeling, though. Like, it hasn't really been like that. I don't think it's something that comes with age, but I think naturally as you get older, as your responsibilities grow personally, professionally, and you move forward, it starts becoming more burdensome and relentless.
It's interesting. I feel like at some stage in my younger days, I was definitely burnt out, but I didn't recognize that's what it was. And you probably have a bit more resilience when you're younger to just bounce back and just
keep going,
etc. But when I look back retrospectively, there was periods in my life where I was doing so much, both like physically, like just doing too much, innit? Just doing way too much, and then mentally you're juggling a lot of things as well, and then match that with a lack of sleep. When it comes crashing down, you don't even realize that it might be a result of burnout. You just kind of just crack on.
So talk to me about that. Like, how did that period of time feel? Like, what, like looking back retrospectively, what do you recognize that makes you feel that it was burnout?
Just the workload in terms of, like I said, both physically and mentally. Like there was so much happening around me, and so much happening to me, and so much happening with me, that it wasn't just a case of you're doing a lot. It was like actually weighing down when I'm really looking back on it. Like, even though I was just getting things done and I had that mentality, just get it done, whatever, you just carry on day to day. But when you're juggling all aspects of your life, like physical health, your these times you didn't even know about mental health really, you was just whatever. Things happening with your friends, things happening with your family, your personal life, like your work, your ambitions, your careers, your activities. Like there was so much going on when I really think about it. And at no point during that period of time did I really get a chance to just stop. And then looking at, as I've got older and looking at what burnout is, I'm sure we'll go into it a bit more in detail, exactly what burnout is. But like some of the signs of burnout, like my mood being low, or
feeling helpless, trapped.
Feeling trapped, I wouldn't say helpless. Just like them kind of aspects. When I look back on it and I really break down what the definition of burnout is and the signs of burnout, I think I would have experienced it a lot more when I was younger than now, which is strange. Now it's just tiredness.
That is one of the signs.
I know, but
burnout.
it's like for a real reason.
It's explainable. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, I've been feeling burnout a lot more lately. I'd say in the last maybe year and a half.
Yeah.
I felt similar feelings where it's just, and this is what burnout is. It's a period, it's a state of being in a state of constant physical and emotional exhaustion, whether that's from long-term stress in your job or in your life, or like you said, being emotionally and physically drained consistently over a long period.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like when you start feeling burnout, it's true. Like I mentioned it earlier on, there's 5 different stages of burnout, and you kind of start off in the honeymoon phase, then you move to, when stress starts coming in, or the honeymoon phase dwindles, and then it turns into chronic stress, and then a state of, continued stress. And chronic stress, one of the things that seems to pop up when you're feeling burnout is a sense of apathy. So feeling quite indifferent to everything, no longer emotionally invested, kind of starting to check out a little bit. So for instance, at work, turning work in late or going in late or procrastinating and stuff like that, you lose your sense of motivation. How did you get yourself out of, if you felt a similar way, how did you get yourself out of that situation or feeling?
It's difficult to say because at the time I didn't recognize it. So it was just living through it almost. But I know that now, if I was to go through, I've gone through things that's close to it, but I think because I can recognize it, I kind of nip it in the bud, like before it grows into something crazy.
Yeah.
But now it's like a case of just managing self. Like it's not that. If it needs to be done, it'll be done. Like that's how I look at stuff. If it needs to be done, it'll either be done already or it will happen.
Yeah.
Like I don't stress things that's out of my control. Whereas them days I would.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot going on in one short period of time, and it just felt like intense. And not stressing things that's not in my control definitely eased the burden on that side of it. Yeah, kind of prioritizing stuff, not taking on other people's issues too much. Yeah, just kind of having a clear path and knowing when to move, basically. Like it's easy to be on the go all the time, but sometimes you just need to chill out just so you can see what's going on.
Yeah, I think you have to prioritize that. And I love the idea of like being on a clear path too, because I think that's an important part of burnout, just like decluttering your path.
100%.
So I was talking to a woman recently, and she was 100% burnt out, and she was saying how every day she just feels exhausted, she's losing her motivation, she just can't do it. And she was like, sometimes I just want to pack everything up and just go somewhere far away, and I'm thinking, should I just quit my job because we could manage it financially, but then will I get bored? And to me, I feel like sometimes when you don't nip it in the bud and burnout builds and builds and builds, because you're feeling such an extreme level of exhaustion, you think you need an extreme level of a solution to that. And I think one thing that helped me with burnout when I was feeling it kind of around this time last year is I went on a really short trip. It was only for like a couple days, maybe even two nights, and that was it. And it makes such a difference to do something for yourself where you just decide to put a hold on all of your responsibilities and just prioritize yourself.
But you see with that, don't you think it's a kind of like, see, when everything's going well for you and your burnout may be a cause of that things are happening in a good way, but you're not taking any time to stop and chill. Don't you think it's easier to recognize it when things aren't going well? What do you do when things are going well for you? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Are you saying what's the difference between how do you nip burnout in the bud when things are going well for you? Yeah, I think you have to prioritize certain things continually. So the example that I just gave of like going on a trip or doing something like that is when you're at that state of burnout, I feel. When you're at that point of like feeling trapped and it's very, very overwhelming, then you need to actively do something. But I think there's key things in our life that allow you to be at your optimum level of, you know, productivity. And that is 100% sleep. You need at least 7 hours of sleep every night, 6 if you really have a lot to do, but you need to do that. Because so I was watching this YouTube video recently, this neurobiologist called Andrew Huberman. So if anyone wants to, you know, check him out, do that after you check out Alphawaves. We are just as good as him. But it was such a good video. Like, it was only like 11 minutes long or something. And he was talking about circadian rhythms in your body and how when you wake up, for instance.
What is that?
What?
You can't just throw out a word.
True,
like that.
true. Right. So circadian rhythms are basically every cell in your body has a timer. There's like a clock that ticks off that tells you when your body needs certain things. And you need that to be in rhythm with your timing so you can do what you need to do at the right time to do it. So for instance, when you wake up, you release cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And that's usually, you know, typically when I first heard about this, I think of cortisol as just a bad thing. It's actually a good thing when it's released when it's supposed to be released, and that should be in the morning. Now, when you wake up and that hormone is triggered, it onsets another hormone.
Yeah.
I don't know if these are actually, no, they are hormones. Yeah, it onsets another hormone.
You're sounding very smart right now. Don't let us down.
I've checked all my facts. But yeah, melatonin is the second hormone that's released, and that's the hormone that winds you down and gets you ready for sleep. So that's what helps put you in a parasympathetic state, where the rest of the day you're in a sympathetic state. Now, if you're messing up your rhythms, if you don't have a regular sleep time, if you're looking at your phone late at night, because light is what we need to also release the molecules and all the things that we need to get on with our day well at an optimized level. So it's recommended that within the first hour or two of waking up, you need to see sunlight, because that releases dopamine and helps stimulate the pathway for that and all of those things. And dopamine is a feel-good hormone, but it's actually the hormone for motivation. That's what motivates you to do things and also stimulates adrenaline in you. So if you're looking at your phone, which also gives you light, but not as much as you need to actually, you know, if you were outside and getting it from the sun or whatever. But if you're looking at your phone late at night, you are already disrupting those circadian rhythms. So you're not getting a proper sleep. You're not waking up in the morning. You're not releasing the correct hormones at the time that you need them to do the tasks that you need to do. And if you're not allowing your body to work with you, then you are going to feel burnt out, especially if there's so much that you need to accomplish in a day.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense when you break it down.
Yeah, and that's what you said earlier on about managing yourself, like energy management. That's what's so important. That's literally what makes all the difference in your day.
It's tricky though, because especially if you're like chasing something, or let me not use the word chasing, working towards something, you often hear like, you have to be super dedicated, you have to be over dedicated, you have to put the hours in.
Yeah.
You can't sleep, you might lose some sleep over it.
Well, you're sleeping, I'm out here making money.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're just tired, or maybe you are, but
I mean, yeah. But the goal is always to make money while you're sleeping. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I've never really bought into that one too tough. But I know you need to put the work in.
Yeah.
So how do you combat that? Like, if that's the messaging that you're hearing all the time, how do you then combat that with, but I need to sleep more, or I need to rest more, or I need to have my, what's the word you used? Hormones aligned throughout the day.
Exactly. Yeah. You need to, and that's the most important thing, because think about, even for instance, a really short example in terms of focus, and if your mind's all over the place, like if your body's focused on having to stay awake, how can you expect it to do other things at the level that you want it to do? Even think about when you're leaving your house and you're flustered, you're late for something and you can't find your keys. it takes so much longer to find your keys. But how is it that when you're on time, when everything's calm, when you're in a relaxed mood and everything's running smoothly, you never really have issues like that?
Yeah.
You know, it all makes a difference. You have to have a firm foundation for everything else to go smoothly. And I think there's a culture of, if you're not, you know, nose to the ground, burn out, near sweat, blood and tears, then you know, you're not doing it right. And I just don't think that's true. I think if there's a goal that you're trying to achieve, you cannot achieve that goal without inspired action. Nothing is just going to fall in your lap and happen. You have to create a time and a space to make those things happen. But also, you can't just keep hitting a rock in a circle in a square and make it work. There has to be a level of surrender and trust in the process. You have to allow things to happen. You can't just put a turkey in the oven and keep opening it and eat it when it's not done. You have to wait for it to be finished.
So do you think a lack of patience can affect that? So if you're constantly say you're working towards something, yeah, and you're waiting for the outcome. So I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. You are a content creator. Yeah. When I say content, I'm talking in terms of film. A film creator, that's the word. Yeah. That's not the word, but it's a word, but you know what I mean.
We're using it now.
And you've put out your own film, short content, short films, etc. But you obviously want the big deal, right? And you're constantly approaching people, constantly sending out emails, constantly doing this, that, the other, and the third, yeah? Meanwhile, what's really going to put you in position is the stuff that you've already done, right? But you don't recognize that because you're constantly doing more and doing more and doing more and doing more and doing more, because you don't visibly see the things you're doing working for you, if that makes sense. So if that's your mindset and you're stuck in that mind frame of that you need to constantly be working to achieve certain things, how would somebody like you break that cycle? Is that clear? Does that make sense? Or do you need me to simplify it? Because I can simplify it.
Yeah, just
right.
For the people,
so,
not me, but just simplify it for...
So, say you've got 3 items of workout, right? But you haven't let it mature enough. You put three films out within the last 6 months. You haven't given it time to blossom.
Promo.
You haven't given it time, yeah? But in your mind, because it hasn't had the reaction that you would like from it, you just go again and you make another one and you make another one and you make another one and you make another one, pitching it to all these different people, right? But you've already put your hard graft in. I'm not saying that you stopped working after the first 3, but you put your hard graft in, maybe those sleepless nights, let's say, etc., on those 3 projects. But because you haven't received the instant gratification from it, you then go and do more and more and more and more and more, right? And by you doing more and more and more and more, that's what's led to your burnout, not the initial 3-month, 6-month period when you was dedicated and you didn't sleep much, etc. But because you haven't allowed it to blossom, that's what's led to your burnout, right?
Yeah. So with that, I would say this is why it's so important to, again, set time and set goals, because as part of dopamine being the motivation molecule, it does make you feel good because you get that sense of, as you said, like immediate gratification or validation for something or immediate results. Now, if you're on that mindset of just push hard, work hard, keep pushing, blah, 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 you need to pull back sometimes and have moments of reflection and evaluation, because that's how you see what's working, what isn't working, how to grow things. And if you're constantly just, you know, pedal to the metal, trying to go forward all the time, you're not setting that time to reflect, to evaluate, to analyze what's happening. And when you do those things, you then allow the space to think about realistic and measurable goals.
Yeah.
So you need to have that middle place between your vision and what you want, and then also small achievable milestones to show you that you're getting there. Otherwise, it's always going to be that long path that seems like it's never attainable.
Do you think life allows you that time though?
life will always throw something your way. You have to make that time. That's
It's
you
crazy
just
though.
have to. And the thing is, we make such a big deal about things like, okay, it needs to be like those YouTube videos of your routines, and you need to set a half an hour every day to write down your goals and this, that, and the other. You could do it on the train, on your notes, while you're sitting there. Like, nothing has to be this big deal. You just have to give yourself some order. Otherwise, it's just chaos, and you don't know where you're coming, where you're going. And part of why burnout happens is that feeling of relentlessness, of overwhelm, of not knowing what to do, because so much is happening at once, and you need to make sense of everything to move forward.
It's tricky though. The reason I keep saying that is because it's just the success model, right? That makes you feel like you always have to be doing more.
So what's the success model that you're talking about?
There's a success model of like constant work equals results. There is this work.
So vague though. It
No,
just
but
makes you feel like you're not good enough all the time.
Yeah. Obviously, as you grow, you kind of work. You find that it's about working smarter, not harder, right?
Yeah.
But the initial phase is hard work pays. Hard work. You hear that all the time. Hard work and dedication. Hard work and dedication. And that's like almost ingrained as the success model, right? Hard work and dedication. But then, like, when do you realize that you're working too hard? Do you know what I mean? Like, if life doesn't allow you those moments of the pause, then it's kind of difficult to realize when you're working hard. I'll give you an example. It won't relate to everyone, but to me it relates. This is when I first kind of discovered burnout, and it worked with myself. I was watching football, right? And I can't remember which football player it was. It might have been Wayne Rooney, right?
Oh my days.
So he's broken through as a youngster, 16, whatever, come on the scene, tearing up the league for years. Then he gets to like 10 years into his career, 26, 27, and he starts to slow down. But 26, 27 is when you're meant to be in your peak, right?
Yeah.
But the reason it's starting to slow down is because he's had such a high upward trajectory from early that he's just constantly playing, and he's burnt himself out early. And that's when I first realized what burnout was. I was like, oh, so there is a case of if you do too much, it can come crashing down a bit too early.
Yeah.
But when you're in that mode, you don't want to lose your momentum. So like if you're in your mode, that's why I'm pressing on it so hard, because it's easy to say, but when you're in that situation where momentum is kicking in, losing that momentum that's like heartbreak, because catching that momentum back, it might not be your moment again.
But see, this is why I mentioned surrender as well, because you have to trust, you have to trust that. And see what you said with, for example, if you look at success models with Wayne Rooney, like that would be completely different from someone else who, I've forgotten their name, but it's a really famous fashion designer, Vera Wang, I think. And she could be anyone, I
Same
really
with my
don't
story.
know.
It might not be Rooney, but
But for today, it's very right. And they've made their first, fashion thing at age 40. So people's timelines are different, and what could be success for someone else could be a failure for someone else.
100%.
And there needs to be a sense of surrender. And I'm so glad you mentioned this story, because this is one of the turning points for me, because I recognized it in myself. This feeling of lack and like of things are going to be taken from you, where you have to look at things as it's here, it's meant for me, I'm working towards it, it will happen for me at the time when I am ready for that. And you have to trust those things, I think.
100%. I agree with that side, yeah.
Because when you feel like, because even think about that, like when you don't want to lose momentum, and even if you think about it in an energetic way, like if you're constantly pushing forward, not because you're just trying to get to a goal, but because you're scared of something being taken from you, or losing momentum, or no longer being in that place, you're already creating a dynamic where you're chasing something. And when you're chasing something, it's creating that energy that the other thing is moving away from you.
100%. That's why I changed it earlier from chasing to working towards, right?
Yep.
Because
exactly.
And that's me changing and recognizing it, because I used to say chasing, etc. But working towards is different. But what I was saying is, what was I saying? I lost it. I gained it and I lost it. Momentum, yeah. The reason I say that is because if if you've been doing this thing of like working, and then something sparks, again, it goes back to phrases that you hear all the time: strike when while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
So, but you don't recognize that what has sparked it isn't necessarily what you've been doing, the action of working non-stop. It's just some of the work you've put in has resulted in this.
Yeah.
But you can't recognize that. You just think it's all the work you've put in. So if it's now popping, you're only gonna do more of that, right? So this is where the difficulty lies, and I think it's I keep touching on it because I think it's important, and I see it happen a lot where people don't recognize the burnout. Like recognizing the burnout is so difficult when you're on a hot streak.
It is so difficult, but you can feel it. Like, you have to trust your body. Like, if you're starting to feel negatively towards things, if you can start to feel that sense of overwhelm, then burnout is here. It is happening. But also, that's why I think I've mentioned it in a few other episodes. This is why it's so important to recognize the season of your life that you're in. If you're in a building season, that's going to be very different and less busy than, you know, a reflective season, for example, or a regrouping, a reassessing season, or reevaluating. We get the point. But yeah, that's going to be a different season. That doesn't mean that you've now lost momentum, you know. That's it. So sorry, a creating season is going to be a lot different than a promotional or a networking season. That's going to have a lot more movement, a lot more momentum. You're going to be, say, if you're releasing an album, you're going to be calling radio stations, doing different things, whatever. And that's very different from being in the studio writing, and that's very different from an editing season. That doesn't mean you've lost momentum in each of those times, but that scale of how fast you're moving is going to be different according to what season you're in.
100%.
And if you're not like allowing yourself to slow down because you're like, oh, this is a season that I have actually less control over, so I need to allow other things to take their time during this time. And then that also is a natural cycle for you, because that's when you're going to start slowing down and rest, because a much busier period, a much busier season is right around the corner for you. And when you don't manage your energy, when you don't, you know, stay in touch with yourself and connected to yourself, and you just keep pushing and pushing forward, you don't allow yourself space to really see where you are in a more bird's eye view.
But you see, like your example just there of a musician, yeah? I'll tell you where the difficulty lies in that, what you just said, the seasons. So you'll have that season where you're recording, writing, etc., right? And you might be putting your hours in on that side of it. But again, as a result of that, you start to gain momentum in terms of eyes on you, demand for you. So now all of a sudden you've got bookings coming in, and you don't want to turn that down because that's what you was just working for.
Yeah.
So now you're doing that side of it, and your bookings are going great, everything's going great, but the demand for new music comes now because you want to stay on the road. So then you go back into that cycle, and it's like, it's an endless cycle unless you pause. But trust me when I say that feeling of pausing when you think that you finally got the momentum that you've been working for is difficult. Like it's super difficult.
What's difficult about it?
Because you just feel like this is what you've been working for, and then for you to and then for you to pause that just because you feel a little tired or whatever. I said a little tired because I said that for a reason, because I want you to, after I finish this, I'm going to ask you if you could pull up the signs of what burnout are, yeah? But let's say, you feel a little tired or whatever it is, and your mood's low or whatever, but in your mind, this is what you've been working for, this is what you've put the work in for, you're now getting the fruits of your labor, but you don't recognize that rest is key.
Rest is super key. Like, it is so important. It really, really is. And look, even if you're in your momentum, you're having that moment, say if you've got, you know, a performance this day, an interview that day, blah, 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 you're not going to have something on every single day of your week, you know? So one day can be a day that you don't go to the gym, rest, do something, have an early night. And if you try to manage yourself as much as you can, you'll notice, like, okay, I'm doing the best I can to manage myself, and it's still not enough. I'm still feeling burnt out. And then you know that there's, you know, a bit more of an actual rest that's needed. But this is why it is so important to connect to yourself. Like, I made the mistake recently of not connecting to myself and, you know, managing my energy properly, and my mind wasn't managed as a result of that. My health wasn't managed in a physical sense because of that. It all has a domino effect on everything, and eventually it did also impact and affect my work too. So these things, it's, you can't just ignore it, you know. You can't just think, this is my moment, this is what I've been working for. But
you do recognize though that if you're going for something that is subject to public perception, you seem to be taking breaks can have a detrimental effect on how people look at you as well.
True, but
you
it
can
doesn't
look
have
at like
to
you're
be
not serious, etc.
Continual breaks, or, you know, not making commitments and stuff like that. But it means like, okay, it's been a relentless month, it's been a relentless however long it's been, a relentless 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I need a holiday. You know, you've got to do those things, and in those 6 months you can't completely lose yourself either. But you see people do it. You see people do it in a general workplace. Like they'll work themselves to the ground. And not realizing that that company you're just a number to a lot of companies. Some companies are more personable, but the majority are just a number. Most of them,
and it's like
a replaceable.
You'll be replaced. If you was to pop down, you'll be replaced
immediately.
But you don't recognize that because you're just putting in your work. You're gaining your recognition. People are looking at you, admiring what you're doing, but you're not taking no time for self to just focus on yourself. But in terms of burnout, what are the key signs of burnout? Do you have that for us?
Yes, I do. So I touched on it earlier, but the key signs of burnout. So there's key phases. There's 5 stages of burnout. So it isn't just like a sudden onset of feelings or anything like that. There's 5 phases. So the first phase is the honeymoon phase. So whether it's starting a new job or, you know, trying out a new task, you experience satisfaction that leads to periods of productivity and the ability to tap into your creative side. So it's the honeymoon phase, everything's going great. And then it's the onset of stress. So you begin to experience stress, and that's not in every moment of your day, but stress seems to take over more frequently and starts to become, you know, a bit more impactful. So losing focus more easily, less productive, you can start feeling more fatigue. It makes it difficult to sleep or enjoy activities outside of work. Then you have the chronic stress phase. Now that's when I mentioned what happened earlier on. You start feeling more apathetic, you don't complete work on time, you're late, you may withdraw from normal work-related conversations. Sometimes you can lash out with either your co-workers or friends and family. You stop taking invites to things, start declining stuff. And then that's when you reach your limit. You're in the 4th phase, which is the burnout phase. So this is where you can't function as you normally would. Problems seem to consume you. You obsess over them. You experience extreme self-doubt. Physical symptoms could be like chronic headaches, stomach issues, stuff like that. And then if left untreated, it goes to the 5th stage, which is habitual burnout. It becomes part of your everyday life, leads to anxiety, depression, experience chronic mental and physical fatigue, and your job may be put in jeopardy if you continue down this path. So it gets serious. And I can honestly say in the last 7 weeks especially, I have definitely reached that 4th stage point.
Is that the final stage? How have you dealt with getting out of that?
Well, I had to force myself to take a break, and I now have some time to do that. And in that time, that's when I've realized how burnt out I've become. And one thing I noticed through that time is that you just blame yourself. Like you just think, oh, why am I not doing this? I need to work harder. I'm not doing the right thing, this, that, and the other. And I know that if I just step back, prioritized myself instead of worrying about everything and being in the middle of the burnout storm, I would have recognized that this environment wasn't the right environment. I could have regrouped and gone down a more authentic path for myself.
Yeah.
And instead, it happened in a way that I would have preferred didn't happen, you know, if you leave these things unchecked. So, yeah, it's important. Like, we all need to start treating our mental wounds, mental signs, mental exhaustion as physical wounds. You would never leave, you know, your tooth unattended because it would hurt too much. But more importantly, you know that if you did, it would get worse and you'd lose your tooth.
Yeah.
You don't think about it like that with your mental, and you need to.
It's because mental is like, as much as it's always been there, it's new to speak about. So it's like a lot of discovering things. Yeah, it's not as accepted, I feel, as well. People, I think it is now. I think it is, but I don't think you always come across compassionate people towards it. There's definitely, you know, an undercurrent of, oh, just get a grip, just blah, blah, blah. You know, stop making excuses. Yeah. No, of course. I feel certain settings you can't really, you should be able to talk about it, but you can't really just talk about it openly. But within yourself and within your own space, I think it's more recognizable and more acceptable now. For you to and you've got time to be kind to yourself. Sorry to interrupt, but just to say, like, I know I've put forward like all these solutions and preventative measures and stuff like that, but that's not to take away from the point that burnout is just not your fault, you know. Like, it happens, and when it happens, it's a horrible feeling. It takes a while to recover from it. Like, even with more time off, I still feel that, no, you can't like lose your sleeping pattern or this, that and the other. You have to stay productive, and you really can't do that to yourself. Our shoulders are only our little shoulders. They can only take so much. Yeah. It's a balancing act, isn't it? Because I don't think you can totally neglect the need of doing these things. Yeah. Because you won't get what you want without putting in some sort of work. Yeah. But it's understanding, like you said, your seasons and your periods of when you do certain things. Even your week. Like, okay, if there's a deadline and you end up putting an all-nighter or doing something or staying up late to get something done, those days are going to happen if you're working on something, especially creatively, you know, or with a business or whatever. But you have 5, 4, 3 other days, you know, have some early nights. Yeah. Decline some invites. You don't have to be at every birthday. Like, you just don't. Yeah, no, definitely. It's difficult to do, but it's worthwhile once you get through it. It's so worth it. You're in mental torment when you're in that 5th stage. Like, it's so true what was written there, that, you know, you just start feeling you over stress about everything, you obsess about everything, you can't you don't have a clear, you're not seeing things clearly, and you just lose yourself a little bit more, and you don't need to get yourself to that state. Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. Okay. Interesting. Well, as we bring things to a close, yes, it's that time of the episode. Wise words, word of advice. You got any for the people? I feel like I've said so much. Yeah, no, you basically have, for real. It's like, what's the thing at the end of a book? The blurb. Yeah. Is it a blurb at the end or at the start? Wait, at the back of the book? Yeah. Like on the cover? Yeah. Blurb. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the blurb, yeah. My word of advice, I don't know. I feel like just go easy on yourself all the time. Life is long. Opportunities will come, opportunities will go. Sometimes you'll get something and you thought it was going to be there for 5, 4, 3 years, 2 years, and it was only there for a couple of months. And it's meant to be like that if that's how it was. And you just have to trust that, have to make your peace with that, and look after your body, because that's the only thing that's with you 24/7. Yeah. I know those were a lot of words, but no, I don't think it can be summed up in one word, to be honest. My thing is, work hard in periods so that you can work smart in the longer term. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Make of that what you will. And on that note,
So Darren's pro burnout. That's all I'm here. You have not listened to anything I've said, and that's great. No, I'm joking. But yes, please follow us on Alphawaves podcast.
Yep, on TikTok,
Instagram.
Thank you for everybody that's been
Yes.
commenting on our TikTok. We've had a few recent interesting developments on there from one of our recent episodes, so we see it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Continue doing it. We've got more content coming.
Yes, we do.
And more interaction with you guys.
Yes.
If there's anything you want to see us talk about, let us know. Anybody that wants to come up here and have a conversation with us, let us know. And yeah, until next time.
Until then.